You probably don't notice it at first. That's how it always begins. It's never a dramatic explosion, never a storm that tears through your love in one night. No, it's much quieter than that. It's in the little pauses, the words left unsaid, the patterns you start repeating without realizing you're doing them. And one day, you wake up next to someone who feels more like a stranger than the love of your life. You see, love rarely dies with a bang. It dies with a whisper. It fades through habits, ordinary, everyday actions that seem harmless in the moment. But over time, they carve out the foundation of connection, trust and intimacy, until there's nothing left to hold on to. And the truth is, you might be doing some of these right now without even realizing it. That's why this conversation is so important. Because awareness is the only thing that can save you before it's too late. Think about it. When you first fell in love, you paid attention to every detail. You noticed the way they laughed. You remembered their favorite food. You held their hand like it was the most natural thing in the world. You wanted to know everything about them, to give them the best of you. But slowly, without meaning to, you stopped noticing. You stopped trying. Not because you don't love them, but because you fell into habits. Habits that feel small, but in the long run, they quietly suffocate love. And that's why I need you to listen carefully today. Because if you've ever wondered why relationships that started with so much fire end in silence, if you've ever feared losing someone you care about deeply but didn't know how to stop it from happening, this is where it begins. There are 5 habits that slowly kill love. And most of the time, people don't even realize they're doing them. But once you see them clearly, you can't unsee them. And if you're willing to be honest with yourself, truly honest, you can change. You can catch yourself before it's too late. You can protect your love from slipping through your fingers. So let me ask you something. When was the last time you truly looked at your partner and felt that spark you once had? Not just comfort, not just routine, but the kind of spark that makes you feel alive. If it's been a while, then this might be the most important message you hear today. Because that spark doesn't disappear on its own. It's stolen, piece by piece, by the things you overlook, the things you brush off, the things you tell yourself don't matter. But they do matter. They matter more than you think. The first habit that kills love is one you've probably done before. Maybe you've even done it today. It's so subtle you could miss it completely. But it's one of the biggest reasons relationships fail. And if you don't catch it, it will keep eating away at your connection, until one day, you look back and wonder what happened. And here's the hard truth. You don't lose love overnight. You lose it in the little moments. The moments when you think your actions or your lack of them don't matter. The moments when you tell yourself you're too tired, too busy, too stressed. But those moments add up. They become a pattern. And that pattern becomes a habit. And that habit, it's the silent killer of love. You've probably already guessed what I'm talking about. Neglect. The absence of effort. The quiet assumption that love will keep itself alive without you having to tend to it. And I need you to hear me. Love doesn't work that way. Love is like a living thing. If you stop watering it, if you stop nurturing it, it withers. Not immediately, not in one day, but slowly, invisibly, until one day you wake up and realize the connection you once had is gone. Think about the early days again. Remember how much energy you put into making them feel special. The good morning texts, the thoughtful gestures, the way you really listened when they spoke. That was effort. That was you showing them that they mattered. And what did it create? Spark, intimacy, trust. But somewhere along the way, you stopped. Not completely, maybe, but enough that they felt it. And here's what you need to know. Love doesn't die because of hate. It dies because of neglect. Because you stopped doing the small things that built the bond in the first place. And here's the dangerous part. You often don't even realize you're doing it. You think, of course I love them. Of course they know how much I care. But love doesn't survive on assumption. It survives on action, on showing up every day, in ways that remind your partner that they still matter, that they're still seen, that they're still worth your time and energy. So let me ask you, When was the last time you made them feel truly valued? Not just in words but in action. When was the last time you put your phone down, looked them in the eyes and gave them your undivided attention? When was the last time you made them feel chosen, even after all these years? Because if you can't remember, that's the first sign. That's the whisper of love, slowly slipping away. And here's the part most people get wrong. They think grand gestures will fix it. They wait for anniversaries, for birthdays, for big events. But love doesn't live in the grand gestures. It lives in the small, consistent ones. It's the goodnight kiss. It's the how was your day that you actually listen to. It's the random I love you in the middle of a busy afternoon. Those are the things that keep love alive. Neglect kills love. Not because you don't care, but because it convinces the other person you don't. And once they start believing that, once they start feeling unseen, unheard, unimportant, that's when the walls go up. That's when distance grows. That's when silence takes over. And you don't want to reach that place. So here's what I want you to do. Don't wait. Don't assume they know. Show them. Remind them. Protect your love from the slow, quiet death of neglect. Because if you don't, one day you'll look back and wish you had. This is only the first habit. But it's already enough to show you how fragile love can be if you stop tending to it. And the truth is, the next habit is just as dangerous. Because it doesn't just weaken love, it erodes trust. And once trust begins to crumble, rebuilding it feels almost impossible. But before we go there, I need you to pause and ask yourself, am I guilty of this? Am I letting neglect quietly take the place of love in my relationship? Because awareness is the first step. Change can't begin until you're willing to be honest with yourself. And if you are brave enough to admit it, then stay with me. Because what I'm about to share next might just change the way you see your relationship forever. You know what hurts more than neglect? Being taken for granted. It's not just about what you don't do, it's about the way your silence starts to send a message. You'll always be there. You don't need my effort. You don't need my appreciation. And at first, your partner might brush it off. They might tell themselves, of course you love me. Of course you care. Maybe you're just busy. But after a while, that excuse stops working. Because love needs to be seen. Love needs to be acknowledged. And when it isn't, when your efforts go unnoticed or unreciprocated, it slowly chips away at your heart. And here's the truth. You've probably done this without realizing it. You've probably gotten so comfortable in the relationship that you forgot how fragile it really is. You forgot that comfort, when left unchecked, turns into complacency. And complacency is poison for love. Think about it. When was the last time you said thank you for something simple? For the dinner they made, for the errands they ran, for the way they picked up something you needed, without you asking. You might think, why thank them? Isn't that normal? Isn't that just part of the relationship? And maybe it is, but here's what you're forgetting. Nobody owes you their effort. Nobody owes you their care. Love is a choice, every single day. And the moment you stop appreciating that choice, the moment you stop recognizing that they could choose otherwise, that's when love begins to suffocate. Because here's what happens when you take someone for granted. At first, they'll keep giving, they'll keep loving, they'll keep showing up. But over time, their effort will start to shrink. Not because they don't love you anymore, but because they feel invisible. They feel like no matter what they do, it doesn't matter. And when someone feels invisible in love, eventually, they stop trying. And that's the tragedy. You don't just lose their effort. You lose their spark. You lose the part of them that used to light up around you. You lose the laughter, the playfulness, the warmth. Because no one can keep pouring from an empty cup. And let's be honest, you know how it feels to think about a time when you did something for your partner, something small or something big, and they brushed it off. Or worse, they didn't even notice. Remember how that felt? That sting in your chest, that little voice whispering, do they even see me? Do they even care? That's the same pain they feel when you take them for granted. And here's the heartbreaking part, most of the time, it's not even intentional. You don't mean to hurt them. You just forget. You just assume. You just stop paying attention. But love doesn't survive on assumption. It survives on gratitude, on acknowledgement, on the small moments where you stop and say, I see you, I value you, I'm grateful for you. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. You don't have to write a poem or plan a grand surprise every week. Sometimes, the most powerful words are the simplest ones. Thank you. I appreciate you. I don't say it enough, but I notice what you do, and it matters. Do you know what those words do? They remind your partner that they're not invisible. They remind them that their effort still has weight, that their love is still landing, still reaching you, and that reminder, that sense of being valued, is what keeps people pouring into a relationship. But when you stop giving that, when gratitude dries up, love becomes a transaction. It feels like obligation instead of choice. It feels like routine instead of connection, and that shift is deadly. I want you to really sit with this. Are you guilty of this? Have you started treating the things your partner does as background noise instead of blessings? Have you stopped noticing the small acts of love that happen every day? The text to check if you got home safe, the way they make sure your favorite snack is in the fridge, the way they know when you need space and when you need closeness. Because if you're not seeing those things anymore, it's not because they disappeared, it's because you stopped looking. And the fastest way to lose love is to stop noticing it. Here's something powerful I want you to remember. What you appreciate. When you give attention to the love you're receiving, it grows. When you neglect it, when you act entitled to it, it shrinks. And eventually, it disappears. Now let me tell you what happens if this habit continues unchecked. One day, your partner will stop trying. They'll stop making the little efforts that used to keep the relationship alive. Not out of malice, but out of exhaustion. And you'll feel the shift. You'll feel the silence, where there used to be laughter. You'll feel the distance, where there used to be closeness. And you'll wonder, what happened? But deep down you'll know that you didn't water what you had, you didn't protect it, you didn't appreciate it. And by the time you realize it, it might be too late. I don't want that for you. I don't want you to look back and regret the moments you could have said something but didn't. I don't want you to realize the value of what you had, only after it's gone. So here's what I want you to do today. Start small. The next time your partner does something, anything, pause and acknowledge it. Say thank you. Say you noticed. Look them in the eyes, and let them feel that you truly mean it. Do this often enough, and you'll be shocked at how quickly it breathes life back into your connection. Because here's the truth. People don't leave because of the big fights. People leave because of the small, constant erosion of feeling unseen, unvalued, unappreciated. And gratitude is the antidote. Gratitude is the thing that keeps love alive, even in the hardest season. So don't let this habit take root. Don't let comfort turn into complacency. Don't let the person you love feel invisible. Because the second you start appreciating them again, you'll see something shift. You'll see their eyes light up. You'll feel the warmth come back. You'll remember why you fell in love in the first place. And once you do, you'll never take them for granted again. But we're not done yet. Because as dangerous as neglect and ingratitude are, there's another habit, just as subtle, just as destructive, that creeps in when you least expect it. And this one doesn't just weaken love, it creates resentment. It plants seeds that grow into something darker, something harder to fix. And if you're not careful, it will cost you more than love, it will cost you respect. Stay with me. Because the next habit might be the very thing standing between you and the love you've been longing to protect. Resentment doesn't appear overnight. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks or warnings. It slips in quietly, in the spaces between what you feel and what you say. It hides in every "I'm fine" when you're not. In every forced smile when something hurt you but you decided to let it slide. In every little wound you thought was too small to matter, so you buried it instead of speaking it. But here's the problem. Buried things don't disappear. They grow, they take root, and over time, those tiny cuts, those unspoken frustrations, turn into something much heavier. Something that sits between you and your partner like a wall you can't climb over. that something is resentment. And if you've ever felt it, you know how dangerous it is. Because resentment doesn't just stay in one corner of your relationship. It leaks into how you look at your partner, how you speak to them, how much affection you give or hold back. It poisons the little moments, the quiet moments, the ones that used to feel safe. And the saddest part, resentment often grows in silence, not in the yelling, not in the arguments, but in the things you don't say. You convince yourself, it's not worth bringing up, it's not a big deal, I don't want to fight about it. And maybe in that moment, you avoid conflict. But what you don't realize is that every time you swallow your feelings, you're making a silent trade. You're choosing short-term peace over long-term connection. And the cost of that trade is enormous. Because here's what happens. Every unspoken hurt becomes a tally mark in your heart. Every time they dismiss your feelings, every time they forget something important, every time they cross a boundary, even in small ways, you tell yourself, I'll let it go. But your heart doesn't forget, it keeps score. And eventually those tally marks add up to a story. They don't care, they don't listen, they don't see me. And once that story takes root, love begins to shift. Affection feels harder to give, trust feels harder to rebuild. And the person you once adored now feels like the person you need to protect yourself from. I want you to really sit with this. Is there something right now, something small or something big, that you've been holding on to but haven't said out loud? A disappointment, a frustration, a hurt? If there is, then resentment is already at the door. And here's the hardest truth. Resentment doesn't just affect how you see your partner, it affects how they feel around you. Because even if you never say it, they feel it. They feel the shift in your energy, the distance in your eyes, the sharpness in your tone. They might not know what's wrong, but they know something's wrong. And that confusion, that uncertainty, starts to break the bond too. So what's the solution? It's not silence. It's not swallowing your truth. The only antidote to resentment is honest communication. Not explosive, not cruel, not designed to wound, but honest. Saying, when this happened, it hurt me. Saying, I need this from you. Saying, I love you, but I can't keep pretending this doesn't bother me. It's scary, I know, because vulnerability always is. You fear they'll dismiss you. You fear they'll get angry. You fear it will turn into another fight. But here's what you have to understand. Silence is not saving your relationship. Silence is suffocating it. Love doesn't grow in silence. Love grows in truth. And the truth is, your partner can't meet needs you never express. They can't fix problems you never name. They can't love you fully if they don't know where you're hurting. And maybe you've been avoiding it because you tell yourself, it's not worth it. I don't want to seem needy. I don't want to stir things up. But let me ask you, what's more destructive, speaking up and risking discomfort, or staying quiet and guaranteeing resentment? Because resentment will always cost you more. And if you let it grow long enough, it doesn't just kill love, it kills respect. And once respect is gone, everything else collapses. So I want you to picture this. Imagine years from now, looking at the person you love, and realizing the distance between you isn't because of some big betrayal or huge mistake. It's because of 1,000 little moments where you chose silence over honesty. Imagine realizing you could have spoken, you could have changed things, you could have saved what you had, but you didn't. That regret is heavier than any temporary discomfort of a hard conversation. So let this be your wake-up call. Stop letting resentment build. Stop pretending silence is safety. Choose honesty. Choose openness. Choose to give your partner the chance to actually love you the way you need to be loved. Because here's the beautiful thing: when you do, when you break the silence, when you let the truth breathe, something shifts. The walls start to come down. The closeness returns. The spark reignites. Not because everything is perfect, but because you're finally on the same side again. Resentment thrives in the dark, but love thrives in the light. And I know this isn't easy. It takes courage to open up. It takes humility to admit you're hurt. It takes strength to risk conflict in order to find connection. But if you're serious about protecting your love, this is the work you can't avoid. Because if neglect weakens love, and ingratitude makes it invisible, resentment is the habit that corrodes it from the inside. It's slow, it's subtle, but it's deadly. And unless you stop it, it will keep growing until there's nothing left between you but distance. But the good news, you can stop it. You can change it. And you can start right now, today, with one honest conversation. Now, before we move forward, I want you to ask yourself, what am I holding on to? What unspoken words are sitting in my chest? And am I willing to let them out? Not to fight, not to blame, but to heal. Because once you do, you'll see that resentment doesn't have to be the end of your love. It can be the beginning of a deeper, more honest, more lasting connection. But we're not done yet, because there's another habit, one that's just as destructive as the ones we've already uncovered. And this one doesn't just weaken love, it drains the joy out of it. It takes the magic, the laughter, the lightness that makes love worth having, and replaces it with something heavy, something exhausting. And if you don't catch it, it will make even the strongest love feel like a burden. Stay with me, because the fourth habit might just be the one you've been carrying without even realizing it. Love is supposed to feel like a refuge, a place where you can rest, where you can exhale, where the weight of the world feels lighter because someone is carrying it with you. But what happens when that space, that refuge, turns into another battlefield? What happens when the very person you run to becomes the person you feel you need to run from? That's what constant criticism does. That's what negativity does. It doesn't break love all at once, but it makes love feel heavy. And when love feels heavy for too long, people stop wanting to carry it. Here's the truth. You don't have to scream, you don't have to be cruel, you don't have to call names to fall into this habit. It happens in small, everyday ways. The way you correct them, the way you point out what they did wrong instead of what they did right. The way your first response is to notice the flaw before you notice the effort. You think you're just being honest. You think you're helping, but over time, those little jabs, those constant corrections, they add up. And do you know what they sound like to your partner? They sound like, I'm not enough. I can't do anything right no matter how hard I try, it will never be good enough for them. And once that belief takes root, it doesn't just drain joy, it drains love itself. Because love can't thrive where criticism is louder than appreciation. Love can't feel safe when every moment feels like a test you can't pass. Love can't feel light when every gesture is met with a reminder of how it could have been better. And here's where it gets even more painful. Constant criticism doesn't just change how your partner sees themselves. It changes how they see you. Because instead of being the person who lifts them up, you become the voice that drags them down. Instead of being their source of encouragement, you become the source of their insecurity. And nobody wants to keep coming back to the place where they feel most small. I want you to ask yourself honestly, do you do this? Do you point out more mistakes than you offer praise? Do you focus on what's lacking instead of what's present? Do you sometimes think I shouldn't have to thank them for something they should be doing anyway? Because if you do, you're feeding this habit. And I know, maybe it doesn't come from a bad place. Maybe it comes from frustration, or from wanting things to be better, or from stress. But here's what you need to remember. Intent doesn't erase impact, and the impact of constant criticism is devastating. Think back for a moment. What do you remember more clearly in your own life? The time someone praised you, or the time someone cut you down? Chances are the wounds of criticism stuck with you longer. They lingered in your chest, replayed in your head. That's what happens to your partner too. Now imagine that happening in the space that's supposed to feel safest, your relationship. Imagine them carrying that heaviness every day. How long before they stop laughing as much? How long before they stop opening up to you? How long before they stop trying at all? Because why try if it's never enough? And that's the danger here. Criticism doesn't just wound, it discourages. It tells your partner silently but consistently, don't bother, don't try. You won't win here. And once they stop trying, the love you once had begins to wither. But it doesn't have to be this way. You can change this habit. You can shift the balance. And it starts with a simple choice. Choose to see what's good before you point out what's wrong. Choose to notice the effort before you highlight the flaw. Choose to speak encouragement before correction. Because here's the beautiful truth. People grow where they feel appreciated, not where they feel criticized. Love blossoms where it feels safe, not where it feels judged. And your words, your tone, your focus, have the power to either poison or protect the love you share. So the next time your partner does something, even if it's not perfect, pause. Ask yourself, do I want to make them feel smaller? Or do I want to make them feel seen? Do I want to tear down? Or do I want to build up? Because love isn't about perfection. Love is about partnership. And if you want your partner to grow, if you want your relationship to thrive, you don't need to criticize more. You need to encourage more. You need to let them feel that you're on their side, not standing over them with a list of their shortcomings. And here's the truth you can't ignore. Criticism might get you compliance, but only encouragement will get you connection. And what good is a relationship where you have obedience but no intimacy, agreement but no joy? Love is supposed to feel like home, safe, warm, light. But if constant criticism has been your habit, you've turned home into a courtroom, and your partner feels like they're always on trial, and no one wants to stay in court forever. So if you've been guilty of this, if you've been draining the joy out of your love with negativity, it's time to shift. Start by noticing. Start by appreciating. Start by letting your words be the kind that give life instead of stealing it. Because when you do, you'll see something beautiful happen. The heaviness will lift. The laughter will return. The closeness will grow. And your love will start to feel like home again. But we're still not at the end. There's one more habit, perhaps the most subtle of them all, that slowly kills love without you even realizing it. It doesn't look like neglect. It doesn't sound like criticism. It doesn't feel like resentment. In fact, it often feels harmless. But it's the habit that quietly erodes intimacy, until the relationship is nothing more than two people living side by side, strangers under the same roof. And unless you catch it, it might be the very reason love slips away when you thought it was safe. Stay with me. Because the fifth and final habit might be the one that changes the way you see love forever. Here's the thing about love. It doesn't end the moment you stop fighting. It ends the moment you stop trying. It ends the moment silence feels safer than speaking. The moment distance feels easier than closeness. The moment you realize you're not really sharing life anymore. You're just living side by side. That's the final habit. Emotional disconnection. It's not loud. It's not obvious. And that's why it's so dangerous. Because unlike neglect, unlike criticism, unlike resentment, disconnection often feels harmless at first. You tell yourself, we're just busy, we're just tired, it's just a phase. And maybe it is, for a while. But when just a phase turns into your daily reality, when the conversations dry up, when the laughter fades, when the touch becomes rare, you don't even notice when you stop being lovers and start being roommates. And here's what you need to understand. Intimacy isn't just about physical closeness. It's about emotional presence. It's about knowing and being known. It's about looking at each other and still choosing to open the doors of your inner world. But when disconnection creeps in, those doors slowly close. You start talking less, not about schedules or chores, but about your dreams, your fears, your feelings. You stop asking, how are you real? You stop sharing what's on your mind, because you assume they won't get it, or they're too busy, or they wouldn't care. And little by little, the bond weakens. And the most dangerous part, you don't feel the loss right away. You still live together. You still share meals. You still make plans. But underneath, there's a hollowing, a quiet drifting. And one day, you wake up and realize you don't know them anymore. And worse, they don't know you. That's how emotional disconnection kills love. Not with fire, but with ice. Not with chaos, but with absence. And I know, sometimes it doesn't feel like your fault. Life gets busy. Work demands more of you. Kids take up energy. Stress steals your bandwidth. And before you know it, all you have left for each other are scraps of time, scraps of energy, scraps of attention. But let me tell you the truth. If you give your relationship nothing but scraps, don't be surprised when it feels like it's starving. Love doesn't die when life gets busy. Love dies when you stop making each other a priority. So I want you to think about this. When was the last time you sat with your partner without distractions? No phone, no TV, no rush, just you and them, eye to eye, heart to heart. When was the last time you reached for their hand, not out of habit, but out of desire? When was the last time you told them something real, something vulnerable, something honest, something that reminded them you're still here, still alive, still choosing them? If it's been too long, that's your sign, because disconnection doesn't fix itself. The distance won't close on its own. Someone has to notice. Someone has to say, we've drifted. Let's find our way back. And here's the beautiful part. It's not too late. It never has to be too late. Because intimacy doesn't require perfection. It only requires presence. All it takes is one real conversation, one honest moment, one choice to put away the noise and turn toward each other again. Start small. Ask them how they're really doing. Share something you've been holding inside. Touch them not because you have to, but because you want to remind them, I'm here. I see you. I choose you. Because love isn't lost in one grand mistake. It's lost in the slow fading of moments like these. And the only way to keep it alive is to keep choosing connection again and again, no matter how busy, no matter how tired, no matter how long it's been. And here's what I want you to remember. Love doesn't thrive on autopilot. It thrives on intention. It thrives when two people choose every single day, not just to stay together, but to be together, to show up, to connect, to keep the doors of intimacy open, even when life tries to shut them. So if you've been drifting, if you've been feeling that quiet distance growing between you and the person you love, let this be your wake-up call. Don't wait for a crisis. Don't wait for the day they stop trying. Don't wait until it's too late. Choose connection now, because love is too precious to lose to silence. And now, as we close this journey, I want you to look back at all 5 habits: neglect, taking each other for granted, resentment, criticism, and disconnection. Each one feels small in the moment. Each one feels harmless. But together, they're the quiet killers of love. But here's the hope: you can change them. You can notice them. You can stop them before they take what matters most. Because love isn't just something you feel. It's something you protect. Something you nurture. Something you fight for. Day after day. And if you're willing to do that, if you're willing to see these habits for what they are, and choose differently, then your love doesn't have to fade. It can deepen. It can grow. It can become stronger than ever. Because love doesn't die when problems come. Love dies when people stop trying. And as long as you're willing to keep trying, there's always hope. So don't wait. Don't drift. Don't let these habits take what's sacred. Protect your love. Choose your love. Fight for your love. Because at the end of the day, the relationships that last aren't the ones that never face problems. They're the ones where both people refuse to let bad habits win.